Not upload this video is a matter of, speculation. Who knows? I may or may not. I'm sort of guessing as to maybe I might. But I was just thinking. I was talking about religion and understanding things and a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not gonna have some of my wine. I thought I shouldn't fill a glass with wine while I'm on YouTube somehow. That seems like some violation of something. But it's nice wine, and I want to have it because it's a nice, relaxed situation. I got my Mr. Rogers sweater on, so it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood and everything else. And Missy is over here. She's kind of a little bit upset with me because I won't give her any snacks, but she has food to eat, and she has to eat that food first. And I'm sure she's gonna eat the chicken. There's a little piece of chicken on that plate that I just put over there. And she's gonna go ahead and take it. But that's not the point. I always keep thinking, when I first got on YouTube, I never thought I'd be talking that much about religion. But I think what's important to me is when I get to thinking about everything that's been going on lately. People always say things like, I'm going to pray for you, or I'm going to say a prayer. And I know people mean well, but I get to thinking, I'm the kind of person who has some doubts. I don't doubt that there's a God. I just doubt people's interpretation of what God is and how God operates. And I was watching a bunch of videos yesterday. I don't know why I just suddenly watching all these, and they were really kind of long, lengthy videos with William Lane Craig and some other people in the Alpha and Omega Ministries. But they were debating different people. Like one of them had a debate against the Jehovah's Witness guy, which I thought was interesting because I thought nobody in the Jehovah's Witnesses would ever debate anybody about anything, But apparently somebody did, Some guy who was, I guess he was a very educated person, who was a Jehovah's Witness, and he was talking about their beliefs. And it's not even the details of what they believe. It's just the very fact they would even talk about that. And put it on a video that wound up being up now. Jehovah's Witnesses are really getting into the internet, because their organization has a Jehovah's Witness JW.org thing going on. And, I have a bunch of their podcasts, and their explanations about things, and it's on my computer because I can only access it through my computer. I can't really put it on my iPad or my iPod. I was able to get one on there. And when I think about it, if you really think about their explanations, they're ridiculous. I'm sorry, they are. If you're Jehovah's Witness, I apologize ahead of time. I don't mean to offend you, but their beliefs are ridiculous. And so is every other religious belief. I'm sorry. I know that a lot of religious people probably could just cancel their subscription to my channel. But that's the thing. Religious stuff is just stuff people make up. I'm sorry. I think that believing in God, to me, I think is separate from religious stories. Religious stories are meant to kind of convey a feeling or a sentiment or something about a thing. It's not really meant to tell you the absolute truth of how the world works and the way science works. Back in those days, people didn't think about things the way we think about things now. Our even understanding about how science works and the development and how we've evolved in our thinking about things has changed over the centuries, really. So I think it's kind of silly, and I always thought this, even before I ever listened to any YouTube videos. I always thought it was silly for people to sit there and try to show in some scientific way that all this stuff in the Bible is true, because it winds up being a failure. And plus, it's not necessary. It's not even the point. What is the point? Now, I'm not a person who's here to debate because I'm kind of open-minded. Anyway, getting back to the thing I was saying yesterday when I was watching all these videos, and there was one video that I thought was rather interesting because they had the Alpha and Omega Ministries, which is part of, a lot of people heard of Matt Slick. He's part of that group. And they had a priest they had one priest who was in opposition to, to what the Alpha and Omega group was saying about homosexuality. Now, I don't know if that priest was homosexual himself, but it was interesting what he said. It was just interesting, not so much all the details, but the very fact that he held his position on something. And the basic idea that he had was that the stuff in the Bible is more or less what people made up. It's the same feeling I have. I mean, I could never say that to my parents. They would go nuts if I said that. If it's just stuff people made up, which is true. It's not to say, I'm not even saying that that's proof that there's no God. It just all it shows is that that is stuff people made up and said things according to what they understood about things. And if they said any facts about the world, it was just things they were guessing at, or had some idea about, but it just turned out, as we look at things scientifically, we realize a lot of things they believed aren't true. But I thought it was interesting this guy just held his position, despite the fact that the other guy was saying, yeah, but if you believe this, then he wanted the guy to say, well, oh yeah, I got to go with your way of seeing it. But I like what the guy said. He said, you all excommunicate people for not agreeing with you. If they don't see it the way you see it, they're not really a Christian. And they get thrown out of the, that's the thing. You sort of dismiss them. Obviously, you can't dismiss people. Yeah, I mean, you can't throw people out, or really, in a real sense, excommunicate them unless they're part of your religion or part of your group. But outsiders are just dismissed and just, he's crazy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. The one thing that's true with religion of any kind, or any type of movement, it could be political, it could be religiousness, or it could be even anti-religious. The problem with a lot of these movements is that it all works the same way. It's all about conformity. People have to conform. I mean, that's the truth. If you don't conform to the group, you're the enemy. I think about the stuff that Emerson said, about conformity. People almost become slaves to that, fitting in. You really can't be a free thinker or independent thinker. You have to think what the group thinks. If you have any idea that goes contrary to their beliefs or contrary to their doctrines or their rules, and yeah, people do have doctrines even when they claim they don't. They say, well, we don't believe this, or we're just opposed to their, yeah, but you know what? If I say I believe in that there is something spiritual, or that there's something, maybe it's not God, but there's some thing, some people frown on you, and you get on the mild end of it, you'll get frowned at. On the more severe end, you might actually get threatened or even physically dealt with in a certain way. People feel that they have to make the group, everybody has to think the same way. And then that doesn't work in reality. Everybody doesn't think the same way. All of us have different experiences. I believe that there is something in this world. Maybe I can't define it. There's something more than just what we see. There's something more than even what science can tell us. There's something more. Maybe I can't tell you what it is. Maybe I can't explain exactly what it is. In which case, that's why I don't get into debates, because I know I would lose. I would lose a debate. Somebody would say, well, what is your explanation? I say, I don't know. I just feel. Yeah, it is just a feeling. It's just a feeling. And that's kind of like looked down upon. It's looked down upon. It's just a feeling about something. You can't say that. You have to have facts. You have to have data. You have to have numbers. You have to have mathematical and experimental stuff. You just can't have just a feeling. You just can't have an intuition. You got to have facts. You got to have things you can demonstrate and show and put under a microscope and put through a telescope. I have a feeling there's something more to life. And I kind of think that God, in some way, if there was a God, if there is a God, would in some way kind of communicate to each person in his own unique and special way. It doesn't have to necessarily be what's in a book. It doesn't have to be in some holy scriptures and stuff. It can be a way in which God speaks to you directly. in some way, in some kind of way. Again, if somebody pressed me for answers, I probably would say, well, I can't exactly explain what that is. And so they say, well, you lose the debate, because if you can't explain it, then we don't have to believe it. And that's okay. You don't have to. And see, I don't require that anybody has to believe anything. I don't demand that you have to believe something. You can think whatever you want. You can believe whatever you want. That's up to you. That's your choice. That's your decision. But I kind of think that people have always looked at the world according to what was their understanding of things at the time. You know, in the Bible, there's a lot of almost support for slavery. It doesn't exactly say thou shalt go out and have slaves, but it more or less says things like, you know, this is how you should treat a slave, and this is where a slave should act, and this, that, and the other thing. Instead of saying, you know, like the Bible should have thought way ahead of time and said, wait a minute, slavery is wrong. It's completely wrong. It should be eliminated and everything else. And that women should have equal rights, and people should be able to love each other, and whatever this, that, and the other thing. And, you know, it should have said all those things, but it didn't. Because people, it's a people thing. That's why I say it's a people thing. It's not a God thing. We are the ones who learn. I would imagine that if there's a God, God gave us that ability to learn and develop and grow and evolve and to come up with new ways of thinking about something. I don't really, you know, like I said, some people will probably write things to me and say, well, you know, Philip, here's the way it is and whatever. And I get people on both sides of the issue. You know, people who are very religious, they'll say, well, you have to look at, you know, the Bible in this way. And other people say, well, all that stuff is just silly. You know, they want to dismiss it. I don't dismiss it. You know, I think about it. You know, you don't have to agree, but I think I have a lot more respect for people who have actually thought about it. I think about what William James said, where he said that, you know, basically, if people, you would have more respect for somebody who has an opposing position to you, but they thought it out, more than you would for somebody who agrees with you, but they didn't think it out. You'd have much more respect for somebody who thought, who really put their mind into it and thought about it. That's all I gotta say, because right now I'm tired and I just want to rest a little bit and have my wine and probably watch a movie or something. So that's what I'm gonna do.